Good afternoon everyone and welcome to this ordinary meeting of Wingecarribee Shire Council on 17 May 2023. If I could just remind everyone to turn your phones either off or onto silent mode. Acknowledgement of country. Wingecarribee Shire Council acknowledge the Gundungurra and Tharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land we now call Wingecarribee Shire. I pay my respects to elders both past, present and emerging. I would also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders present here or watching today. Statement of ethical obligations. As Administrator, I will undertake the duties of the Office of Administrator in the best interest of the people of the Wingecarribee Shire Council area and to act faithfully and impartially, carry out functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment. I am committed to the declaration of conflicts of interest in relation to items listed on the agenda for consideration or which are considered at this meeting in accordance with the Code of Conduct and the Code of Meeting Practice. Obviously there's no apologies. General Manager, declarations of interest.
There are no declarations of interest, Mr. May. We need to do point 5.
Next we move to minutes. I would move that the minutes, and there are 3 lots of minutes, I would move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on Wednesday 19 April 2023 be adopted as a correct record of the proceedings of the meeting and declare that carried. Second lot of minutes, I would move that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Council held on Wednesday 26th of April 2023 be adopted as a correct recording of the proceedings of the meeting and declare that carried. And the third lot, I would move that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Council held on Wednesday 10 May 2023 be adopted as a correct record of the proceedings of the meeting and declare that carried. Obviously, I would put declarations before minutes. There are none. There's no administrator minutes. General Manager, matters listed for consideration at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. May. Item 9.1, Mr. Robinson, the Manager Assets, will introduce this. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, General Manager. Mr. May, the purpose of this report is to update Council on the high pedestrian activity area proposed for Bonbong Street, Bowral by Transport for New South Wales. The creation of this 30 kilometre per hour stretch throughout the centre of Bowral will further enhance the place qualities of Bonbong Street and so will assist to strengthen the pedestrian, shopping and dining experience within the town centre. This could also be further increased if Transport for New South Wales was to place load limits along Bonbong Street, which would further encourage heavy vehicles and through traffic to instead utilise the freshly renewed Station Street. It's therefore recommended that Council formally support the high pedestrian activity area and also advocate to Transport for New South Wales for them to impose load limits along Bonbong Street.
Have the staff given any consideration to what a load limit would be?
Like what the appropriate load limit amount would be?
Yeah.
Not at this stage.
It's a bit premature.
Yeah, I think that in the first instance, it'd be more if Transport were, supportive of the notion, and then it could be considered what threshold would be appropriate.
Mm. And the other question is, the right-hand turn, and maybe I don't know whether you can answer this one, would it be appropriate in this resolution well, I might be able to because it's not listed, so I can't. That's all right. There's a problem apparently, and residents are raising it with me, about travelling south on Station Street and turning to go across the bridge, the right-hand turn lane, and apparently Transport for New South Wales is still investigating it, but it's not listed, so I can't raise it when I think about it. So thanks for that. In relation to item 9.1, Bonbong Street, I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 7 of the business paper 1, 2 and 3 and declare that carried. 9.2, there is no introduction, there's no need for one. It's just an update, status report. In relation to 9.2, Community and Recreation Facility Strategy Update, pardon me, I've obviously got the flu. I would move that the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 11 of the business paper be carried. I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 11 of the business paper and declare that carried. 9.3, Redford Basin, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. So the manager project delivery, Mr. Tripkovic will speak to this item. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Mr. May, the purpose of this report is to present the evaluation of the request for tender for the Retford Farm Detention Basin project. In 2009, Council adopted the Bowral Floodplain Risk Management Strategy to provide strategic guidance in reducing the impacts of flooding from 1 in a 100-year flood events on the township of Bowral. A major component of the management strategy was to construct a detention basin within Retford Farm to reduce flooding risks for properties downstream of Old South Road. The site of Retford Farm was identified as providing more effect than any other single measure in mitigating the impacts of flooding during these significant events. In 2022, Council was successful in obtaining funding for the detention basin project under the National Flood Mitigation Infrastructure Program from Resilience New South Wales. A tender was advertised from 1st of February to 7th of March of 2023. A total of 8 tender submissions were received, of which 4 were non-conforming in relation to the mandatory and non-price criteria. Tender prices range from 5.2 million to 10.2 million. All tenders were considered in accordance with the Local Government Act, the regulations and Council's procurement policy. A Council procurement officer was part of the process to manage probity in procurement. The 4 compliant submissions demonstrated an understanding of the requirements and experience with projects similar in nature. Western Earthmoving Proprietary Limited were evaluated as the most advantageous tender submission. It is therefore recommended that Council resolve to enter into a contract with Western Earthmoving for the Retford Farm Detention Basin project for a lump sum price of $5.198 million.
Thanks for that. What is the timeline for this project?
I would have to refer to the program within the tender submission, but I think it was in the order of 12 to 18 months.
So it's obviously a very big project and it's going to take a lot of time.
It is. There's over, I think, 6,000 cubic metres of soil that needs to be excavated and reinstalled in the embankment.
Yeah. The officer's recommendation number 4, provide an update to neighbouring residents and the community in general. I understand that a briefing session was organised at the East Bowral Community Hall. Do we have details of those who attended?
Mr. May, we have a register of everyone that signed up to come to that information session. So we do have all the contact details. Yes.
So they'd be in the list of people, because I know there's a lot of people along Mittagong Creek. Along Mittagong Creek. Cherry Tree Walk,
yes,
who are really interested in this.
All the people that attended, we will notify directly. We will also use all of our media platforms to issue the goings-on for the project.
So there'll be direct contact for those who you have the details of, plus the...
Correct.
And will they be told the timeline? Oh, they are, the project timelines? Yeah. Okay, goody. Okay, thank you very much for that. In relation to item 9.3, Redford Park Farm Detention Basin, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 14 of the business paper 1, 2, 3 and 4 and declare that carried. Next item, General Manager, is the quarterly delivery program and budget review to the 31st of March.
Thank you, Mr. May. So the acting Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Conrad, and the Manager Governance Corporate Performance, Ms. Lidgard, will speak to this item, and they have a short presentation to provide to the Council, pulling out the key points. Mr. Conrad.
Thank you, General Manager. From a financial perspective, the third quarterly budget review brings to account a number of changes, including movements in relation to inflation and interest. Council's opening working capital position from the audited financial statements was $6.5 million, which is about $1.5 million above the required working capital position of $5 million. With that starting point and the original budget surplus of $393,000 and prior budget adjustments, our starting position for the quarter is $6.8 million. We have an adjustment or additional cash requirement as part of this adjustment of $250,000 for the Bowral Memorial Hall fit out, and this leaves us to a closing or projected closing working capital of 6.5 at 30th of June 2023. Just some detail around where these adjustments are coming from. We've got $526,000 of an increase in domestic waste management fees, which brings us in line with the full year levy. There's a $500,000 worth of increase in investment income, which relates to interest rates being favourable, of which only $195,000 relates to general funds, which is what we see on the slides up there. There's also a variety of user fees and charges that have been reduced. For instance, $590,000 relating to planning and assessment activity that has been trending downwards. There's also $195,000 worth of reduction in revenue from Mittagong Pool. There are operating grants and several capital grants also brought to account, and we have an overall reduction in employee costs of $1.3 million relating to salaries and wages due to vacancies. And one of the last points that's not specifically on the slides is the $250,000 for the furniture fit out of Bowral Memorial Hall to bring it to the facility that it needs to be. If we can get the next slide. In terms of grants, the third quarter has not been as successful as the first two. So we've continued to apply, council officers have continued to apply for grants to fund various operating capital projects, and we're successful in 5 applications, bringing the total year-to-date grant funding to $35.10 million over 26 grant applications. Of that, $29 million relates to this quarter. So the table above, the pending applications, includes all applications that haven't been determined as of 31st of March 2023. In terms of the grant successes that we've had, the biggest one was the Mossvale sewer treatment plant upgrade, for which we received $25 million, as well as Sally's Corner Road rehabilitation, which we had $1.4 million from Transport for New South Wales. There's also the Regional Local Roads Repair Program of $2.2 million from Transport for New South Wales. Then on community grants, we've received 2 grants relating to specifically women within local government. So one of them would have been a Women's Day breakfast with the title Cracking the Code, Innovation for Gender Equal Future Breakfast for $3,000, and also a Come and Try a Council Career through Women New South Wales of $7,000. There's still a fair number of grants that are pending. One of the big tickets in terms of capital grants are the Bowral footpath sections from Transport New South Wales of $890,000. And there's also a Bowral Golf Course detention basin inside the Bowral Golf Course in Bowral from the Department of Planning and Environment of $1.5 million that hasn't been determined yet. And then there's 2 operational grants that we're still waiting for determination, one of which relates to NAIDOC flag raising ceremony of $3,000, and the other one relating to the Windsor Caribou Community-led Conservation Development Control Review, a long title, for $50,000 as part of the Community Heritage Grants Program. I'll now hand over to the Manager Governance and Corporate Performance.
Just before you do, that's probably better to ask the financial questions now. Or the $5 million benchmark. Yep. Maybe you're the wrong person to ask. I don't know whether should that be raised every year? Have a policy that it gets raised every year? You know, when inflation's 7%.
Yeah.
Well, we decided on that 5 million 2 years ago now.
I'm happy to take it on note.
Just
and come
give
back
it
to you.
some thought if you don't mind. It's just, I think, you know, you don't want to get into well, you've substantially increased it already. But there's always some who will want to spend will probably want to spend the 5. But when it's explained, but I think that benchmark should be looked at each year, if you don't mind, or we have a policy that catches it. Thanks for that.
Thank you. So at the end of the third quarter, Council is tracking well in delivering its commitments on the operational plan. So as you can see from the slide on the screen, 97.8% of our deliverables were on track, 1.7% were on hold, and 0.6% were delayed. Let's go to the next slide. So in terms of what's on hold or delayed, we have Mittagong Memorial Hall still remaining on hold while Council continues to seek grant funding for the repairs and renovations, and also awaits development application approval before documentation can be finalised. The development of an emergency services operation centre is also on hold, waiting funding. And the waste collection contract is on hold. So the contract preparations have been put on hold pending finalisation of the waste strategy and the disposal contract arrangements. These both provide critical input into the collections contract. In terms of what's delayed, the farmland review is is delayed. So the revised farmland policy is in draft and is now undergoing an independent external review to ensure it's fair and reasonable. But it is scheduled to be completed by the end of the financial year. So just to go through some highlights from the March quarter, Australia Day celebrations were held in Berrima Village in collaboration between the Berrima community and council. Bong Bong Common, a contract was awarded and construction works have commenced, which will include new natural and interpretive play spaces, Wingecarribee riverfront viewing platforms, and the addition of improved parking spaces, including disability spaces. Seniors Week was also held, so that this included a full program of events and activities and was supported and organised through February. Council successfully prepared and promoted Seniors Weeks, which included events run by council and community groups. And Station Street reopened on the 16th of March, almost 2 weeks ahead of schedule. There was a big event held during the quarter. So Highlands Fest was held in March with over 4,000 attendees present on the day. The event was made possible by grant funding of just over $287,000 from the New South Wales Government Reconnecting Regional New South Wales Community Event Program. The aim of the funding was to support communities and business to host events that will rebuild community cohesion, deliver positive social outcomes and support local businesses in the recovery of the COVID-19 pandemic. As alluded to earlier, we also held an International Women's Day breakfast. Council was successful in obtaining funding from the New South Wales Women's Week grant program to host the breakfast at Centennial Vineyards. The International Women's Day breakfast provided an opportunity for local women to come together, share a meal, network and listen to 3 local women speak about their careers and insights towards gender equal future. Earth Hour was also held in March. This was a successful event as a result of the community and networks working together. Also during the reporting period, a biannual platypus survey was held at Berrima, and the Dusk Till Dawn initiative was launched, which aims to minimise vehicle strike of wildlife. There was also a number of key consultations held during the reporting period. This included the Bowral Town Centre Master Plan, Penrose, Wingelow, Medway, Balmoral and Buxton Extended Town Water Proposal, Council's Waste Management Strategy, its Community Engagement Strategy and Community Strategic Plan, and Australia Day Post-Event Survey. Council's online consultation hub received almost 9,500 visits during the reporting period, with just under 5,500 visitors exploring the specific details on the site. During the period, we received just over 1,300 surveys, submission forms, and interactive maps were also completed. In terms of some highlights to focus on going forward, this has already occurred. So for this current quarter, there were Youth Week and fundamental activities. So the fundamental program was held during the school holidays. This included workshops for our youth in the holiday period, including workshops around circus, singing and performing arts. Youth Week was also undertaken in late April, and that was in collaboration with Community Links Wellbeing and Youth's Highland Service and the Department of Communities and Justice, where we held a number of events across the Shire, which included gaming and pool competitions, ceramic workshops, cricket-friendly competition, and a youth art exhibition here in Council's Atrium Art Gallery. Also coming up is the reopening of Barrel Memorial Hall, which will open in June following extensive renovation. And then finally, Council continues to focus on environment and sustainability. So they'll be working with local schools to promote Walk to School Day, and also working with Land for Wildlife Properties on grass and eucalyptus identification workshops. That's it.
Can we get back to the first slide, please? Sorry, yeah, next one, sorry. Next. Yeah, okay, no. The Mittagong Memorial Hall, there'll be a further report coming on that to the next meeting, I'm sure, in that big recommendation that was dealt with earlier. Will that also advise when the development application will be finalised?
To you, Mr Mayor, I don't believe so, no.
So there's no timeline on the DA, I thought, had been submitted.
I might ask
That's what the report says.
Sorry, I'll ask the manager project delivery to respond to that question. What I would say too is that we are still actively seeking funding for that project.
Oh, I understand that, but the report says that the DA has been submitted, and it needs to be addressed together with the cultural and the other report. I'm pretty confident that that was one of the recommendations.
Mr May, there is a DA application pending. Of recent, I have been made aware that a few additional referrals have been requested in terms of heritage requirements. These are being resolved, and we'll be back to the Heritage Advisor for hopefully a imminent approval.
Yeah, part 5, the matters raised in my minute need to be addressed in that report that's coming to the June meeting.
Yes, Mr May, that report will address all the items that you raised, and look forward to presenting it.
All the time, people are just saying to me that that's one of the biggest, roads obviously are a huge issue, and DAs, and we're getting on top of that, but we need to have a plan in relation to the Mittagong Playhouse, because it just can't stay like it is. Can we go back again? Sorry. Sorry. Pardon me. The development of the Emergency Operations Centre, but will there be an update report in the next quarter just about where that is up to or where it's not going, or?
To Mr May, to provide an update, we met with NEMA, which is the National Emergency Management Agency, I believe, with the Deputy Coordinator General last Friday, and provided a tour of the space that we're hoping to fit out as an emergency operations centre. We understand that there are grant opportunities coming up in the short term, which we will continue to pursue. I understand that we've submitted at least 2 applications for the EOC to seek assistance for funding for that project. We'll continue to pursue funding, but we can provide an update on the current status of that.
There's no urgency, just that we've got to have an emergency operations centre, and we just need a direction to get there. I know I sound like a broken record with this, but there is just so much great information in this report, which the council staff are doing, and I don't want to be the only one with about 12 other people who read every word. I really think it's important to, get it into as much as we can into the newsletter. I know some people think it's just pumping stuff out, but unless we tell people what is happening, they have no idea what is happening and the good work that the 450 staff at this place do every day. And I just think it's important that we get as much out as we can. I was very pleased with the breakup of the budget into the service activity areas. But what I had a number 4 for the future. For in future, managers' titles be noted in the service activity budget review statements, and from 1 January 2024, coordinator titles be included. I'm not asking for the name, just the title of the position. In other words, the person who is accountable through the system for the money. So with that, I would move the officer's recommendation for 9.4 as outlined on page 20 of the business paper, 1, 2, 3 and 4. In future, managers' titles be noted in the service activity budget review statements, and from 1 January 24, coordinator titles be included, and declare that carried. 9.5, equipment, General Manager.
Sorry, Mr May. So item 9.5, plant and equipment hire tender, request for tender, and the Acting Director Service and Project Delivery, Mr Kuzmanowski, will speak to this item. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. The purpose of this report is to present the outcomes of the evaluation of the request for tender for plant and equipment hire. The tender invited contractors to submit rates for wet and dry hire for plant and equipment and haulage rates for plant and material. The evaluation panel recommended that council accept a total of 37 tender submissions for the purpose of forming a panel arrangement as listed in the tabled resolution. Thank you.
Thanks very much. In relation to item 9.5, plant and equipment hire tender, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 146 of the business paper, 1, 2, and declare that carried. General Manager, the Southern Regional Livestock Exchange, expression of interest.
Thank you, Mr May. Mr Kloplers, the Manager Business and Property Services, will address this item. Thank you. So, sorry, you have to turn the microphone on.
Apologies. The purpose of the report this afternoon is to present the evaluation and recommendations following the outcome of EOY 2022-3, which was the request for expression of interest to the lease of the Southern Regional Livestock Exchange. Mr. Administrator, the officer recommends that Council decline the expression of interest received pursuant to the expression being made public for the lease of the Livestock Exchange. I'll take the report as read, safe to perhaps point out some highlights for those opposite. On September 2022, Council resolved to undertake an EOI to assess the market interest in a third-party leasing and operating of the facility. That EOI noted that Council does not have to adopt any of the EOIs actually received. The EOI was made public on the 22nd of November and it closed on the 24th of January. There was a number of media organisations was used to for the advertising, such as the Southern Highland News, The Land, a number of websites. It was on the EOI was noted on Your Say Wingecarribee. It was on No Agent Property, No Agent Business. There was a large sign on site as well as through realcommercial.com.au. We also made sure that operators knew about it. We contacted AAM Investment Group, Nutrien, Hindmarsh, Elders, and a number of others as per the report. We received a single submission from Outcross Agri Services. The evaluation panel applied the procurement initiation plan, which was developed prior to the EOI being made public. Outcross noted a number of financial as well as non-financial benefits to their submission. Mr. Administrator, the proposal from Outcross would see the facility unlikely to contribute financially in a positive way to the broader organisation or to meet its lumpy capital cost, unfortunately. In addition to that, Council will remain liable for 50% of all the maintenance expenses at the facility. As a result, on a risk-adjusted basis, the evaluation panel felt that the proposal doesn't represent good value, unfortunately, to Council or the community, and all the panel members voted and rejected the offer. Mr. Administrator, should Council endorse today the panel recommendations for the rejection, management will implement plans relating to staffing and structure, business plans for the facility to ensure that it can effectively and efficiently form a productive facility for the organisation. We want to, of course, thank the 6 interested parties that viewed the EOI, and especially Outcross, that took a lot of time and effort in the submission, and that was evident. We reached out to Outcross as the agenda became public, notifying them of today's meeting as well as the content of the item. They very respectfully came back to us and, as can be expected, noted their disappointment but wished us well in the future. Mr. Administrator, the facility is important to the region and service providers, agents, graziers, as well as buyers and sellers of cattle in our region. We all have to work together after this EOI to make sure that each of the parties facilitate the wealth of the region and make sure that everyone gets value from the facility. So we're looking forward to working with the industry after this item. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Look, I think this was an excellent initiative to compare the market with what the council can do. And the additional comments in this, in effect, tender were very much appreciated because it made it very clear, pardon me, why you were making your recommendation. And whoever assisted in preparing the reports, I thank them very much because it made it easy to just look. just for next time, I wouldn't have attached all the tender, etc. While I appreciate getting it, a councillor is entitled, while the matter is before the council, to view anything they want to view. So I could have just asked for a copy of that. This is not being disrespectful. It's just I don't think it was really necessary when you'd done all the good work in the actual report and made it very clear why the decision had been taken. So congratulations to all concerned, and the community is the winner. We've looked at whether it should be commercially operated or by the council commercially, and it's very clear. In relation to item 9.6, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 155 of the business paper and declare it carried. 9.7, provision of potable water.
Thank you, Mr. May. Mr. Robinson's back. The manager assets. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Mr. May, the purpose of this report is to provide Council with the results of the community consultation in relation to the potential connection of potable water to the northern, southern and western villages of the Shire. In accordance with previous resolutions of Council, consultation was conducted across the month of March with residents of Wingellow, Penrose, Medway, Balmoral and Buxton. A letter and survey was posted to each property owner that would have the potential to connect to the future network. For each scheme, an information pack was also prepared, which contained details about the potential infrastructure upgrades and the financial implications. Information sessions were also held for each scheme in the area. The survey response rate across the three schemes was in the order of 30 to 40%, which is largely consistent with that experience back in 2014 and 2015. Analysis of the survey results showed that none of the potential water supply schemes received the required community support of 75%. Given that the schemes did, they would be significant financial implications to the wider community. The extension of the water supply network to those communities requires a high level of support from the communities that will directly benefit. With none of the potential water supply schemes receiving that high level of community support, it's therefore recommended that Council do not proceed with the extension of the water supply network and instead continue to focus on ensuring the resilience and performance of the existing network.
Many people told me this was an inevitable result, but I think unless you ask a community, you don't find out exactly what they do want. And I think this has been handled very, very well by the officers. The response rate is not fabulous, in my view, which then, because we gave them reply paid envelopes and everything, if you then look at your levels for where you wanted responses, it's even worse. I don't know how to statistically calculate that in, but experts will be able to. So look, I think the decision you've come to is the right one based on community consultation. Everybody's had a go, and we've found out what people want. And having said that, I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined for 9.7, provision of potable water. I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 244 of the business paper 1, 2 and 3 and declare that carried. Financial reserves update, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. Again, the acting CFO, Mr. Conrad, and he has the final two reports that will be introduced. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. This report serves to provide feedback from consultation we've done in terms of and public exhibition of the debt recovery and water determination policies. Just to recap in terms of policy changes, the hardship policy will be absorbed into the debt recovery policy, and the payment arrangements will be handled on a case-by-case basis, with moving from a 12-month to a 24-month payment period or possible arrangement period. The feedback received in the first instance relates to the mechanics of the policy and does not relate to the policy itself. So Council is suggesting that we do not amend the policy, but refer the respondent to the advice that we've received by our service providers. In essence, the documents are lodged by a Sutherland local court, where that service provider is located, and the resident or the ratepayer is able to request that the matters refer to the Moss Vale local court, or any other court where they reside at that point.
We're doing this together. Not 9.8.
We're doing the wrong one.
Just to clarify, we're on 9.8, and then we just need to deal with that and then move
Yeah,
on
sorry.
to 9.9. You're
I
right.
took
Yeah.
to the wrong one.
I think you might have jumped ahead a bit.
No, you fix them.
Yeah, next time.
Mr. Kelly made a submission in relation.
Yes. My apologies.
No, you're right.
For the financial reserves policy, the feedback received in the one submission has been reviewed and considered. However, it provided constructive feedback in terms of structure, etc. It does not result in a change in contents of the proposed policy. Therefore, it is recommended to adopt the financial reserves policy as publicly exhibited.
Thank you. In relation to item 9.8, financial reserves policy, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 260 business paper and declare it carried. 9.9.
9.9. Just to recap on this one, the responses received in this case related to a process, not the policy itself. So in the first instance, we're proposing not to amend the policy for the debt recovery policy. In the second instance, the water determination policy that we exhibited and made changes to. The key change there was around resetting the water determination from once in a lifetime of ownership to once every 7 years or at change of ownership, as well as including additional adjustments or opportunities for adjustments around undetectable leaks due to natural disasters. The response received in this instance related to providing additional support around properties or property owners with large acreage. And our response to this is, unfortunately, we are unable to subsidize such a large property owner's water bill, as this would mean that the adjustment essentially means that the subsidy essentially is subsidized by the entire rate base, as we do not receive any adjustment from Sydney Water. For this reason, it is recommended that the additional adjustments not be offered for owners of larger blocks, and both policies be adopted without change.
I agree with the recommendation. Just a couple of questions. Mr. and Mrs. Breen from Robertson raises a very good point about the filing of court documents in Sutherland. I would have thought we're here for the resident, not the provider. So can arrangements be made for them to file in Moss Vale?
I'll need to take that on note. I haven't heard back from the provider at this point whether that is possible. At this point, the lodgement will need to still occur in Sutherland where the provider resides, and then a relocation of that docket can be.
Well, they're working for us, so hopefully you'll tell them they're to be filed in Moss Vale. And look, and the Schultz from Hilltop, I understand what they're saying, and I understand what you're saying too. Can a resident put a smart meter on their own meter if they want to, or?
Technically, probably behind our council meters, the meter reading needs to come off the council meter. But if they do want to install a smart meter past that point, they can probably do that. But it's not normal practice.
To Mr. May, we might need to seek some advice from the Manager Water Services and come back to you.
Okay, I just, if it's a concern to them, if their water pipes are going a long way, and we're not doing it, they may want to make that investment themselves, and then they could also check to see the council's meter reading too, if they wanted to. But anyhow, that's just, if you wouldn't mind, thanks very much. In relation to item 9.9, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 284 of the business paper and declare that carried. Any other matters? Oh, investments, I'm sorry. Yeah. Obviously, there's no introduction for this one. In relation to item 9.10, investments report to the 30th of April, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 305 of the business paper and declare that carried. Nothing further? With that, thanks everybody for your attendance and for the quality of the reports, the staff too, and I declare the meeting closed at 4:15. Thank you.